As you know, we have many Vermonters who lost everything in Irene. They lost their homes, they lost their belongings, they lost their dreams, and they lost their sense of security, of belonging, of knowing that they were safe in their home. Tony came to me and to David Coates and to Neil Underville some months ago, and he said, I want to help. But he said, I don't just want to give money to some fund. He said, I want to know that every dollar that I give is going to help get some of our most vulnerable Vermonters back in a house. And I want to do the whole thing. I don't go part way. I want to make sure that they actually get back in their home. And that's exactly what we're celebrating today at this moment. As you know, 150 mobile homes were damaged or destroyed in Irene. Approximately 100 units were damaged beyond repair. This entire team, with the help of Lieutenant Governor Phil Scott and others, have pulled together to say, how can we help the most vulnerable? Who are we talking about? We're talking about Diane Graham and many, many other Diane Grahams across the state. Diane's here today. Diane, just come on up. I won't embarrass you by making you talk, but I just want you to know who Diane is. Diane's story is the story that Tony Pomerleau wanted to help time and time again. As you know, or may not know, but she lived at Weston's. She lost her mobile home. She lost the place that she'd lived. She had no mortgage. She was living happily at Weston's, and an extraordinary Vermonter. Irene came and took it all away. And people like Diane were left to have to fend for themselves, find a place to stay. Diane still is not back in her home. But because of Tony Pomerleau's generosity and the Pomerleau Cornerstone Fund that has been established and endowed with $1 million because of this extraordinary generosity, Diane Graham is going to be back in her home at Weston's within 2 to 3 weeks. That's the kind of example that Tony Pomerleau and the Pomerleau Cornerstone Fund has made possible.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a privilege to stand before you today with the Governor Shumlin, and I'm representing Senator Patrick Leahy. Governor, you've been with the victims of Irene from the first moment, and I know that your dedication to helping all of them will not waver. And I am especially proud today to join in honoring my Uncle Tony. Like all Vermonters, Patrick and I are extremely grateful for my uncle's generous gift to the Irene recovery effort. The Pomerleau Cornerstone Fund will provide grants to help at least 40 Vermont mobile homeowners who were devastated by Irene. Patrick worked with Senator Sanders and Congressman Welch to assure that the federal commitment in Irene's wake was fully realized. And the state of Vermont, led by Governor Shumlin, has done a fantastic job pulling together resources to support our towns and to restore our infrastructure. Still, there are gaps that have a very real impact on the lives of Vermonters. My uncle's contribution will be a big help, and the Vermont Disaster Relief Fund, ably led by David Coates, will help fill those gaps. There is a real need this year, just as there will be well into next year. To the Governor and to David Coates, Lieutenant Governor Scott, Speaker Smith, and Senator Campbell, thank you for all you have done, and thank you to all of the Vermonters who have donated their time, resources, and hard work to this effort. Mr. Pomerleau, my favorite Uncle Tony, mon oncle Tony, oui, c'est toujours mon oncle Tony. That's our private joke. Thank you. You've always been there for Vermont, for underprivileged kids, for the National Guard, for me. And all the list could go on and on. We don't have enough time to go to all of them. Patrick and I are so very proud of you and the many Vermonters you have helped our state through a difficult time. Thank you, and I love you.
I guess maybe I have more experience in the flood people. Very few people. First of all, the reason I'm wearing my glasses, I only want to see my tears, and I don't want them to see them. I was in 1927. Very few people could witness two terrible storm. Now Newport was very bad. I wasn't quite that old enough to do, but I had an experience that I think there was a longer period and perhaps more rain, but because of our rivers and because of our big lake, I think we didn't quite suffer as much as down South Irene. At the same time, I remember we had just moved to Derby in 1927, and we were above 100, 200 feet above the river. It was quite a ways away. It became a big river, and I remember my father used to walk to the bank, which was at least 1,000, maybe 2,500. So at no time that our house was in danger, but every morning the hill was removing by 2, 3, 4 feet at the time, and the river would become bigger. So, and I remember stories that my father told me about people that get washed away in the flood and the bridges. And amazingly, the only bridges that ever stayed was the old-fashioned wooden bridges. The new one disappeared. And and by that time, where the state was and didn't have the Vermont National Guard or Patrick Leahy maybe in Washington to help them with the construction and everything else. So I do compliment the governor and his staff and the Vermont National Guard, how much they did for these people, because we had the equipment. Back in 27, they didn't have the equipment. And so I'm so glad that I was part of it. And as you know, I've been giving parties to the kids, underprivileged children, for 32 years. And the campground, which I just discovered, somebody else was looking for help, there was 16 trailer camp that was being removed. And those people couldn't afford to be removed. And at the same time, I try to explain that, that particular home, to those particular people, it's just as much important to them as my house is to me. And so I think as of yesterday, I think we will save those 16 homes for the people. So anyway, do you have that small check, by the way?
As long as Ernie didn't get it, we're all right.
You deserve perhaps more credit than I do. You guys did all the work, and all I do is put the money up. But before I give you that check, I want to make sure. You ready, dear?
That's right.
They're my notes.
Before I give you that big check, does that include the tip for this afternoon's lunch?
Hey, we got to show that off.
I don't want to change it.
Look at this. There you go. $1 million.